Listen closely because what you're about to hear is not information, it is an activation. You did not find this message by accident, it found you because you were standing at the threshold of a deeper reality. Your life has been nudging you, pulling you, whispering to you that there is more. More to who you are, more to what you're capable of, more to the world behind your eyes. And now, for reasons you may not yet understand, you're ready. These 7 levels of consciousness aren't concepts, they are gateways. And once you see them, you cannot return to who you were, is where your journey truly begins, not because it is the lowest level, but because it is the most honest. Survival consciousness is the place where your body speaks louder than your soul, where the world feels sharp and unpredictable, and every decision seems to echo with "what if I lose? What if something goes wrong?" Yet beneath that heaviness, something sacred is happening. Survival is not a flaw, it is your first teacher. It shows you what you cling to, what you fear, what you protect, and even though it feels like limitation, it is actually your initiation into awareness. Most people think fear means they are weak or broken, but fear is simply the nervous system announcing that you are alive and paying attention. When you stop fighting it and begin listening, you notice a subtle shift. Fear becomes information. It tells you where you've been wounded, where you've been conditioned, where you've been taught to shrink. And the moment you realize that fear isn't a command but a signal, everything changes. A small crack forms in the internal armor you've worn for years, and through that crack, a faint but undeniable light begins to move. That light is your awakening. And once that first crack of light appears, something within you remembers that life is not only about surviving, it is about reaching. Desire rises almost like a tide, quietly at first, then unmistakably. It pulls you toward more comfort, more freedom, more certainty, more possibility. This is the level where you begin to sense that the life you've settled for is not the life you were built for. And yet, desire is a paradox. It awakens your potential, but it also exposes your illusions. Because when you want something, you confront the truth that you do not yet believe you can have it. That tension between longing and doubt is the friction that shapes you. Desire is not greed, and it is not weakness. It is a compass pointing toward the version of you that's trying to emerge, but the moment you chase blindly, desire becomes a moving target, always just out of reach. The shift happens when you realize that desire is not asking you to run after something outside yourself. It's asking you to grow into something within yourself. And when you choose your desires with awareness, when you stop wanting from lack and start wanting from expansion, desire transforms. It becomes creation. And as desire matures into direction, something stronger begins to rise within you. An inner fire, quiet at first, then unmistakably powerful. This is the moment you stop waiting for the world to change and begin realizing that you can change yourself. Personal power is not loud or forceful. It is the subtle knowing that you are no longer willing to abandon yourself. You make decisions with a different spine. You speak with a different certainty. You notice that life responds differently because you are no longer approaching it as someone who hopes, but as someone who chooses. Yet this level, like every level, carries its paradox. Power can liberate you or it can trap you in the illusion of control. If it expands your heart, it becomes freedom. If it inflates your ego, it becomes armor. But even that is part of the lesson. You learn to direct your thoughts instead of being directed by them. You learn that confidence isn't pretending you're unshakable. It's recognizing that you can be shaken and still stay rooted. This is where boundaries form not from fear but from clarity, where vision becomes sharper, not because the world changed, but because you finally lifted your own veil. In that moment you begin to sense a deeper truth. You were never powerless, you were only unawakened. And then, almost unexpectedly, the fire within you softens, not because it's fading, but because it's evolving. Personal power begins to melt into something wider, something gentler, something far more expansive. You start to feel life instead of trying to control it. The world no longer appears as a battlefield of threats and opportunities, but as a web of mirrors reflecting pieces of you back to yourself. This is the moment connection awakens. not the kind built on need or approval, but the kind that arises when you finally see others without the fog of your own defenses. Judgment loosens its grip. Compassion begins to move without effort. You notice that you listen differently, breathe differently, choose differently. The heart opens not with a dramatic burst, but with a quiet exhale, as if it's been waiting for you to stop fighting long enough to let it speak. And love, here, ceases to be an emotion and becomes a frequency, an organizing force that rearranges everything it touches. It draws the right people closer, moves the wrong people away, and brings a new intelligence to your relationships. You begin to realize you are not here to win against life or hide from it, but to harmonize with it. And in that harmony you feel something unmistakable. You are no longer alone in your journey, you are connected to everything. And as love reorganizes your inner world, something extraordinary begins to happen. The noise that once filled your mind starts to thin, and in its place, clarity rises like a quiet dawn. This is where truth begins to reveal itself, not the truth handed to you by society or family or fear, but the truth that has been waiting beneath every belief you've ever carried. You start noticing patterns you used to walk past, cycles you used to repeat without question, assumptions you once mistook for reality. It's almost disorienting at first, because wisdom doesn't arrive with fanfare, it arrives with stillness. You realize that so much of what you defended was never yours, and so much of what you doubted was simply dormant knowing. And the most paradoxical part is that the more truth you uncover, the less you feel the need to prove anything. Validation loses its grip. Comparison dissolves. You begin trusting your inner voice with a certainty that feels ancient, like remembering a language you once spoke fluently. This level isn't about gathering knowledge, it's about shedding illusion. And with every layer that falls away, you feel yourself becoming lighter, more precise, more aligned. You're no longer navigating life from the surface, you're navigating it from the center. And when truth settles into your being, when wisdom quiets the turbulence of your inner world, you begin to sense a shift so subtle yet so profound that it feels like stepping into a different dimension of yourself. The boundaries that once defined you, your story, your fears, your labels, your limitations, start to dissolve, not because you're losing yourself, but because you're expanding beyond the version of you that needed them. This is the moment unity consciousness reveals itself, not as an idea but as an experience. You feel woven into the fabric of everything. Life no longer seems like something happening to you or around you. It begins to move through you, as if you and existence are speaking the same language again. You notice synchronicities that once felt random now appearing as reflections. You feel guided without needing to force direction. Manifestation becomes less about asking and more about aligning, less about wanting and more about allowing. And the strangest, most beautiful paradox emerges. The more connected you feel to the whole, the more clearly you recognize your unique role within it. This is not the final level, it is the original one, the place where consciousness remembers itself, and where you finally remember you were never separate, not for a single moment.